What did you eat today? Toast? A sandwich? Maybe pizza? Now imagine, none of those ever existed. No bread. At all. Sounds crazy, right? But the story of bread is even crazier. Bread is one of the oldest foods in the world. People have been eating it for thousands of years. But here's the surprise. The first bread was made before farming even existed. Wait, how is that possible? In 2018, archaeologists found tiny burnt crumbs inside an old fireplace in Jordan. At first, they looked like normal dirt. But after studying them, scientists discovered they were bread. Not just old bread, very old bread. The bread was about 14,400 years old. That's older than farming, older than cities, and much older than the pyramids. This discovery changed what historians believed about bread. Back then, there were no farms, no tractors, no supermarkets. People had to find wild grains by hand. Imagine picking tiny seeds, one by one. That sounds like the slowest grocery trip ever. After collecting enough grains, people crushed them between two heavy stones. No blender, no mixer, just two rocks. It took hours just to make a little bit of flour. Then they mixed the flour with water and cooked it on a hot stone over a fire. It worked. The world's first bread was born.
It's perfect!
But don't imagine soft bread like today, because what came out was very different. You might think the first bread was soft and fluffy, but wait until you see what it actually looked like. So, what did the first bread actually look like? If you're thinking about soft sandwich bread, you're way off. The first bread was flat, hard, dry, and probably tasted a little smoky. It looked more like a giant cracker than a loaf of bread. But there was one small problem. It was really hard. Like, really hard. Imagine biting into something so crunchy, you start worrying about your teeth. Ancient people probably needed strong jaws just to eat dinner. Even though it wasn't delicious, people kept making it. Why? Because bread was easy to carry. It lasted longer than fresh food, and it filled your stomach. Sometimes, that's all people needed. Thousands of years passed. Then something unexpected happened. Ancient Egypt changed bread forever. And it may have happened by accident. One day, someone left dough sitting out for too long. Instead of throwing it away, they baked it anyway. Then something amazing happened. The bread became bigger, softer, and much lighter. Tiny living organisms called yeast were already in the air. They entered the dough naturally. As the yeast grew, it made tiny bubbles. Those bubbles made the bread rise. People didn't know the science yet, but they knew one thing. This bread tasted much better. Soon, Egyptians became some of the best bakers in the world. They made many different kinds of bread. Some were round, some were long, some even had fun shapes. Bread became part of everyday life. But bread's story was just getting started. Soon, it would become so valuable, people would actually use it as payment. Can you imagine getting paid with bread instead of money? In the next part, we'll see how bread became so valuable that it helped feed empires, and even played a role in changing history. Bread wasn't just food anymore. It became one of the most important things people owned. Every morning, families baked bread. Every day, people bought bread. And if there wasn't enough bread, people got angry. Really angry. The Romans loved bread. In fact, they built huge bakeries that made thousands of loaves every day. The smell of fresh bread filled the streets. Imagine walking through the city and smelling bread everywhere. Honestly, that sounds pretty nice. Some workers were even given bread as part of their food rations. Bread was so important, it helped feed workers, soldiers, and families every day. Without bread, life became much harder. Then something interesting happened. As cities grew bigger, more people needed bread. So bakers started making bread faster and in larger amounts. You could say these were some of the world's first bread factories. But what happens when people can't get bread? That's exactly what happened in France over 200 years ago. Bad harvests made grain harder to find. Bread became more expensive. Many families couldn't afford enough food. People waited in long lines, sometimes for hours, and sometimes there wasn't enough bread for everyone. Imagine standing in line all morning, only to hear, "Sorry, we're sold out." People became frustrated. Some blamed the weather. Some blamed rising prices. Others blamed the government. Bread wasn't just food anymore. It became a symbol of survival. After thousands of years, bread had become one of the most important foods on Earth. But here's the funny part. The bread we eat today looks nothing like the first bread ever made. But when did bread become the loaf we know today? And why do some people say old bread was actually healthier? We'll find out. Take a look at bread today. White bread, whole wheat bread, baguettes, croissants, bagels, burger buns. There are hundreds of different kinds. But for most of human history, bread looked nothing like this. For thousands of years, most people ate darker bread. That's because flour wasn't as refined as it is today. Tiny pieces of the grain stayed in the flour, so bread looked darker and had a rougher texture. White bread was rare and expensive. As technology improved, people found better ways to grind flour. Factories could make huge amounts of it. Bread became cheaper, and more people could buy it. For the first time, bread was available almost everywhere. Then, sliced bread arrived. Yes, someone actually had to invent pre-sliced bread. Before that, people sliced every loaf themselves. Honestly, we've become very spoiled. You know that saying, the best thing since sliced bread? Now you know why. Sliced bread saved time. It was easier, more convenient, and people loved it. Today, bread is one of the most popular foods on Earth. Almost every culture has its own version. Naan, pita, baguettes, tortillas, sourdough, flatbread. Different shapes, different recipes, same basic idea. And to think, it all started with people collecting wild grains by hand, grinding them with rocks, and cooking them over a fire. Thousands of years later, we're still eating bread. Not every invention changes the world, but bread definitely did. It's amazing to think that something as simple as bread has been with us for more than 14,000 years. It survived the Stone Age, the rise of ancient Egypt, the Roman Empire, the Middle Ages, and it's still on our tables today. Every slice of toast, every sandwich, every burger carries a story that began thousands of years before supermarkets, factories, or even farming. The next time you eat bread, take a second to think about everything people went through just to make the very first loaf. They collected tiny wild grains by hand. They spent hours grinding them with stones. They cooked them over an open fire. And without knowing it, they created one of the most important foods in human history. It's funny how some of the biggest inventions weren't planned at all. Sometimes, a small idea, or even a simple accident, can change the world forever. And that's why history is so fascinating. The things we use every single day often have incredible stories hiding behind them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe because this is just the beginning. We've got many more amazing stories coming, including the history of pizza, coffee, ketchup, toothbrushes, chocolate, paper, and many other everyday things you probably never thought about. Before we end, I want you to imagine something. You're living 14,000 years ago. There's no electricity, no grocery stores, no restaurants, no food delivery. You're hungry, really hungry. You spend the entire day searching for food. You finally find a few handfuls of wild grains. Then you spend hours crushing them between two heavy rocks. You mix them with water, cook them over a fire, and finally, you take your very first bite. It isn't soft, it isn't fluffy, it probably isn't even that tasty. But in that moment, you have no idea that what you're eating will still be on people's tables thousands of years later. Fast forward to today. You can walk into almost any store, grab a loaf of bread in less than a minute, and be back home before those ancient people even finished grinding their grains. Sometimes we forget how easy life has become. Behind every slice of bread, there's a story of patience, creativity, and thousands of years of human history. The things we use every single day often have the most incredible stories. If you enjoyed learning about the history of bread, subscribe, and join us as we uncover the hidden history behind more everyday things.